So we're nearly 5 years into the electrified era of construction equipment. And in a lot of ways, it's been a rather quiet 5 years. Following a few years of introducing concept machine after concept machine at trade shows, today only a handful of manufacturers have actually brought an electric machine to market, though just about all of them do have at least one or two in the works. Now, just about all of the machines that have hit the market and are available to purchase today are compact machines, and about half of those compact machines are compact excavators. That's not a coincidence. The state of electric vehicle battery technology is such that it is much more economical to power a small piece of equipment than a large or even medium-sized machine. Plus, compact machines are the hottest segment in the equipment market right now, and they have been for some time. Skid steers and compact track loaders are a big reason for this huge spike in growth in recent years, but so too are compact excavators. Thanks to their ability to fit into tight spaces, working against walls, squeezing into backyards, and even through doorways, along with the growing number of tools that you can pair them with, compact excavators are very well suited to be a first investment in electric machinery, because the switch to battery power actually augments what's already great about these machines, allowing them to be used in more places and at more times of day. But look, here in 2024, electric compact excavators are still not for everyone. They look like a conventional compact excavator, they have the same capabilities and power of a conventional compact excavator, but you should not think of them as conventional at all, at least for right now. With battery technology in its current state, costing what it costs, you should think of an electric compact excavator as a specialized tool for specific types of jobs. Now look, for those of you that do those specific types of jobs, these machines could be an absolute game changer. But for most dirt applications, the cost premium attached to electric compact excavators, combined with the math that you're gonna have to do around keeping these machines charged during the workday, during the work week, means that you're going to need to do some serious thinking around cost-benefit analysis if you're eyeing an electric compact excavator to invest in. So in this video, we're going to discuss what you need to know about electric compact excavators. We're also going to look at some of the important and specific models on the market and whether you should rent or buy one of these machines for your business. Now, all but one of the specific machines that we'll look at today are in the 1 to 2 ton range, because manufacturers have really identified that range as where you're going to get the most return in terms of capacity and runtime for the size of the battery pack required for that machine. Now, there's a solid understanding among all the major equipment manufacturers that not everyone is going to be running out to buy an electric machine anytime soon. As I noted at the top, electric excavators are aimed at meeting the needs of specific customers that want to do specific things. To give you an idea of what that looks like for these companies, Takeuchi introduced its TB20e compact excavator exclusively to the rental market before starting to sell these machines to customers. Takeuchi saw demand for an electric excavator, but it mainly saw that demand coming from its rental partners and among municipalities. After all, many customers and operators out there remain skeptical of electric excavators until they actually get to demo one. So much of the appeal to these machines comes down to how quiet they are and the responsiveness in the controls, which we'll get into in just a little bit. Now, obviously, the biggest point of skepticism comes from how long the batteries in these machines will last during a workday. Now, while most users should be able to get through a full workday with these machines, those that plan on using a compact excavator for heavier tasks will need to figure out how to charge these machines during the workday in order to ensure they don't run out of juice before quitting time. For instance, if you need to trench for 7 hours straight, or you need to run a hammer for extended periods of time, an electric excavator is going to need a charge at some point during the day in order to keep going. Now, another point of skepticism that people kind of come into this evaluation with is with regard to power and performance. Across the board, manufacturers say that these machines meet and in some cases even exceed the power and performance of their diesel counterparts. And every manufacturer we talked to said that that is one of the first things that customers mention after demoing one of these electric excavators for the first time. How surprised they are that it can do the same work and the same performance of a diesel machine. So in the end, these are the real reasons that you'd want to own or rent an electric excavator in 2024 at the current state of the technology. Right now, these machines have zero emissions, they have lower noise, no loss of performance, and even faster response times, and they have less maintenance costs than their diesel counterparts. So let's talk about these benefits for a second. The first two, zero emissions and low noise. These are selling more electric excavators than you might think. Now, the appeal to the no emissions and low noise is that this combination actually allows you to work in more places at more times of day. Now, while a diesel machine might be too noisy to work in an upscale neighborhood early in the morning and not able to work indoors due to the emissions that it creates, Electric excavators can work indoors and out, and they're quiet enough to work in neighborhoods or urban settings where you have to work as quietly as possible, early in the morning or late at night. And when it comes to the lower maintenance cost benefit of these machines, it's not just that an electric machine greatly reduces the amount of parts that can wear out or break on a diesel machine. It does do that. For instance, no fuel pump, transmission, etc. All of those things are costly repairs that you'd have to make if they go out on a diesel machine. But another major consideration when it comes to lifetime cost on an electric excavator is how many hours you'll actually put on it. When an electric machine is not actively being operated, it's basically not running at all. So let's say that this amounts to a 20% savings in the number of hours you're going to put on a machine. So if you're putting 500 hours per year onto a machine, you're actually gaining back 300 hours every 3 years. And at the end of those 3 years, a 1,500 hours machine looks a lot different on the resale market than your 1,200 hour machine. Now, the final differentiator with electric and diesel excavators is the responsiveness that an electric machine has. So instead of hopping in a diesel machine and stomping on that throttle or turning the knob to get your RPMs up, in an electric excavator, your thumb wheels and controls are really proportionate to the amount of input that you give them. If you move the stick harder, the machine responds instantly with that amount of effort that you're putting in. In fact, a lot of customers get out of one of these machines for the first time and say that the electric compact excavator seems like it actually has more power because it's so much more responsive than the diesel machine. Now, another benefit of the responsiveness is that a lot of operators leave the cab after a long shift feeling a lot less fatigued. They're doing the same amount of work, but it requires less effort. And as we discussed before, there's no constant vibration and noise that you'd get from a diesel engine. Now, because of this combination of benefits over their diesel counterparts, people are starting to look at electric excavators as a completely different tool, built to go places and work at times of day that a conventional excavator simply cannot. And because of that, these machines really require an open mind and maybe even a willingness to adjust your workflow around them if the benefits are worth it to you. Now, before we move on to talking specific models, one thing that I learned, what's worth noting here while talking with manufacturers, is that despite the trade-offs involved, electric machines are really not a fad. They're not going anywhere. Not only are a lot of governments, manufacturers, and other businesses committed to cutting emissions in the next 10 to 20 years, in order to implement another feature, autonomy, in these machines, you have to first electrify them. And like electrification, autonomy is certainly not a fad either. It's actually already being implemented in a lot of machines in various, degrees, but full automation will certainly take hold on construction job sites. But the bigger picture thing here is that with much of the population moving to urban centers, and those urban centers requiring quiet machines and increasingly less emission-emitting machines, electric machines are going to be a required tool in the tool belt for contractors seeking work in these urban centers in the near future. All right, so let's take a look at some specific models of electric excavators, starting with the JCB19C1E. So JCB was actually the first manufacturer to launch an electric excavator to the market, and that happened in 2019. The 19C1E is a 2-ton class conventional tail swing machine, and it's identical to its diesel counterpart from a construction standpoint. The chassis, boom, dipper, etc., all identical to the diesel counterpart with no loss of dig depth or breakout force or any of the other key performance specs. JCB says the 19C1E has a continuous runtime of 5 hours. So before we go any further, it's important to note the word continuous there because it's key to understanding the battery range of these machines. You might see 5 hours of runtime and say, that's not even a full workday. But no machine on a job site is working continuously for 8, 10, 12 hours. And when an electric machine is not moving, like we said before, it's not running. Any pause in the work means that very little, if any, battery is being drained. And as a result, 5 or 6 hours of continuous runtime means that you should be able to get the machine through an 8-hour workday pretty easily with typical use. Now, the exception to that rule would be that if you're pushing the machine hard during that workday. Now, when you do need to charge up the JCB 19C1E, it can be charged from a 110 or 120 volt plug, a 220/240, and a 440 volt fast charger. The 110 takes 12 hours to reach full charge, the 220 takes 8 hours, and the fast charger can charge up the machine in only 2.5 hours. So when it comes to recommendations, JCB says that if you're a one-man operation, that 110 volt plug is probably all you'll need to keep the 19C1E charged up day to day. However, if your machine is being used for multi-shift work or long hours, JCB recommends having at least that 220 volt charging available. Now, I mentioned earlier the appeal of being able to use one of these machines just about anywhere, and one JCB customer has been able to do just that. Recently, they used the 19C1E to do renovations inside a large retail store. Now, this customer used the machine to break out the floor, get into the pipework, haul all the debris away and everything, all while customers were shopping, something that you simply could not do with a diesel machine. All right, moving on to Volvo. Volvo has 3 electric excavators on the market: the 2.5-ton reduced tail swing ECR25, the 1.8-ton reduced tail swing ECR18, and the 1.8-ton conventional tail swing EC18. Now, the ECR25 was the first electric excavator Volvo brought to market. It's a roughly 6,000-pound machine, and it's the exact same physical size as its diesel counterpart. Now, just as was the case with the JCB machine, the ECR25 features no loss of performance and has identical specs to its diesel counterpart. It's available with a short arm and a long arm configuration. And one thing to note about these Volvo machines is that they all feature a J1772 charging point. Now, that's the standard electric vehicle charging point in North America, at least for now, because many companies are adopting Tesla's charging point. For the time being, however, this means that a Volvo electric machine can be charged anywhere a typical electric car could be charged, meaning that you could stop off on the interstate, actually charge up your machine before you get to a job site. Now, the Volvo ECR25 has a 20 kilowatt hour battery, and it can be fully charged via a 240 volt charger in just 6 hours. With the 400 volt fast charger, it can reach 80% capacity in less than an hour. Now, next up are the Volvo ECR18 and EC18, which Volvo announced last year. Now, the ECR18 weighs in at about 4,000 pounds, and like the ECR25, short and long arm configurations are available on both the ECR and EC18. Both these machines also feature retractable undercarriages, allowing you to get through a 42-inch gate by retracting the tracks and then expanding them back out depending on the stability that you need. Now, both of these machines also feature identical kind of specs and dimensions to their diesel counterparts. All right, but what differentiates the EC18 and the ECR18? Well, above we noted that one is a reduced tail swing, hence the R in ECR18, and one is a conventional tail swing excavator, the EC18. But beyond that, the ECR18 has a 16 kilowatt hour battery and has a runtime of around 3 to 5 hours continuous. This means that the ECR18 can be fully charged in about 10 hours with a 110 volt outlet, 5 hours via 240 volt, and 1 hour with the 400 volt rapid charger. Now, the EC18 weighs in at around 4,000 pounds and is a conventional tail swing machine. And because this is a conventional tail swing machine, that means that there's more room kind of in the body of the machine to put a larger battery in there. So Volvo placed the same 20 kilowatt hour battery that is in the larger ECR25 in the EC18. Now, because of that larger battery, the EC18 has a 6 hour continuous runtime. The EC18 can be fully charged in about 12 hours with a 110 volt outlet, 6 hours via 240 volt, and in about 1 hour and 15 minutes with the 400 volt rapid charger. All right, now we're gonna round things out here with the Takeuchi TB20e. Now, released last year, this is a 1.9 ton machine weighing in at about 4,250 pounds. Now, a major differentiator on the TB20e is that Takeuchi went the extra mile in making this machine feel more like a diesel machine by allowing you to ramp up the motor speed manually, just as you would with the throttle on a diesel machine via a knob. So that means that the TB20e might not have the quick response of a typical electric excavator by default, unless you kind of ramp up that torque. But it does mean that you do have the ability to customize the feel of this machine, and it could make the transition from diesel machine to electric machine much smoother for some operators. Now, the TB20e has an average continuous runtime of somewhere between 4 and 8 hours, depending on how hard you push the machine. Now, charging up the TB20e can take up to 10 hours if you're using a 110/120 volt or 240 volt charger, but it can be done in as little as 4 hours with a 408 volt to 552 volt rapid charger. Now, I do want to point out one huge advantage to the TB20e, and that is that it can also run while tethered to power. You can actually plug the TB20e in to a 120 or 240 volt outlet and continue to run the machine. Now, that 120 volt option is really meant for just kind of like a last ditch, just giving you enough extra time that you might need to finish a task before the battery dies, or even moving that machine to a location where it can be charged. And that's because tethering to the 120 volt outlet is simply not providing enough juice to the machine to kind of keep up with the amount of battery that is being discharged as the machine operates. However, the same is not true of the 240 volt. If you tether to a 240 volt outlet, that will actually provide enough juice to keep up with battery discharge, and it'll even give you additional runtime on top of the battery. Okay, so given everything we've discussed so far, the strengths of electric excavators, and several of these specific models. How do you know if one of these machines is right for you? And should you rent one or make the full investment of a purchase? I think the most basic approach to this question is considering whether any of those main benefits of an electric machine appeal to you. The low noise, no emissions, lower maintenance costs. Would renting or buying one of these machines open up new revenue for you or allow you to do something that you're already doing much more efficiently? So if the answer to those questions is yes, then you need to start thinking about the degree to which the answer is yes. Electric compact excavators are not cheap. They carry a price premium over their diesel counterparts that ranges anywhere from around 35% to 200%. So JCB says the 19C1E ranges between 35 and 50% more expensive than its diesel counterpart. And the company says that the machine provides a return on investment that can typically offset the cost of the machine in around 5 years. And one thing to make clear here, each manufacturer I spoke to says that the batteries on these excavators should last you around 10 years. They should get you around 3,000 charges and be able to last you around 10 years. And even at that point, with the 10 years, still have 80% battery capacity left. But look, if you're considering one of these electric excavators and that machine is double the cost of the conventional diesel machine, you really need to consider usage time at that point. With that type of price premium, you're gonna have to create new business to justify that price premium. Now, one final thing to note, the decision could be a bit easier depending on where you live. Now, just as is the case with electric cars and trucks, there are state and local government incentives to be had on electric excavators, many of which can offset that high difference in cost between electric compact excavator and diesel compact excavator. And it can offset that cost entirely. California, for example, has some very attractive incentives on these machines. But look, as we explained before, you won't really know if one of these machines is a fit until you see it in action, see it in person, and actually get to use it and see how the battery drains and over time and how the type of work that you're doing impacts it. So really the main thing that I recommend here is see if your local dealer rental house has one of these electric excavators and ask if they'll give you a demo. Then maybe rent one for a job or two, see how much the benefits outweigh the extra cost and the need to set up a charging infrastructure on your job sites. Like I said at the top of this video, for a lot of you out there that are looking at doing specific type of work with this machine, it really can be a game changer. And using one rather than just like listening to me talk about it, that's what you really need to do to kind of get the full picture around whether or not one of these electric excavators is really right for you. All right, guys, that's all we've got here on the state of electric compact excavators here in 2024. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much to all the manufacturers that we reached out to for talking to us and helping us learn a little bit more about the state of this segment of the market, where it's moving forward, and the customers that are benefiting from it already today. Thank you again for watching. We always appreciate the time. And if you like this video and found any information in it useful, be sure to do us a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to Compact Equipment here on YouTube, and visit us at compactequip.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.